Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons because I always do talk about Dungeons and Dragons. The topic for today is not taxes and how you can get around actually figuring them all out or doing them. No, this is clever uses of minor illusion in the game of Dungeons and Dragons 5e. This is the topic. This basically means I'm going to give you everything that I can think of and know, and everything I can think of and know from other people, because this video is actually constructed from the community. It's not just my ideas. There's a lot more going on here. I would also like to point out that Treantmonk has a very good video on how to use minor illusion, and I would suggest when you get the chance to go and watch that video. Okay, so minor illusion is one of the best, if not the best cantrip in the game of Dungeons and Dragons 5e, provided your class actually gets access to it. If you don't get access to minor illusion, then it's not really going to be the best cantrip for your class. But ultimately, because it's accessible by so many classes, I think it really is one of the best out there, and you'd be a fool, frankly, not to take it. Now let me explain why. In my own way, I have my own way of doing things. I will explain to you in as much detail as I possibly can exactly why I think minor illusion is really good, because I will give you lots of examples. There are a few provisions. There's a few things you need to take into consideration when you look at minor illusion. And the first thing is players will need to think creatively for it to be truly impressive as a spell. If they can't do that, well, hopefully this video will solve a lot of that problem, but it really comes down to a creative player. If you're not that sort of person, it may well not be the cantrip for you. The other aspect is you need to have a flexible and open-minded dungeon master. You really require that kind of dungeon master for any of these ideas presented to have a chance of being successful. If you don't have that, it's probably not going to work. Now, where can we actually find the information on minor illusion? It's in the Player's Handbook on page 260, and basically this has a casting time of 1 action, a range of 30 feet. It has a somatic component, so there are some gestures. There is a material component, but no verbal. So that means we can do this on the sly without anybody noticing, provided they can't see us. In fact, even if they can see us, it may not make any difference. But it does mean we can do this in a silent manner. It has a duration of 1 minute, so you really can't do anything significant, but you can do little things. You create a sound or an image of an object within range that lasts for the duration, which is 1 minute. The illusion also ends if you dismiss it as an action, which you would be foolish to do, or cast the spell again. So you can only have one instance of minor illusion at a time. If a creature uses its action to examine the sound or image, the creature can determine that it is an illusion with a successful intelligence or investigation check against their spell DC or spell save DC. If the creature discerns the illusion for what it is, the illusion becomes faint to the creature. Now there are some other provisions to this. In other words, if a creature can see you interacting with this thing, and you're passing through it, they will discern without having to make any check that it is probably an illusion. The other thing to really bear in mind too is that it is limited to a 5-foot cube. Now when I say a 5-foot cube, that doesn't mean you can unfold the cube's area into a larger space. Whatever can fit inside a 5-foot cube is what you have access to. So there are some limitations. So here are the ideas I have for you on how you can go about using this spell in the most creative way. And it's a big list. For those of you who wanted lots and lots of ideas, I have the biggest list of ideas for using your cantrip minor illusion in the game of Dungeons and Dragons. Here we go, starting with number 1. What about creating a portrait or a picture of someone you are searching for? Now, the idea is this will be a NPC or a character, and you're going to show it to another NPC. And the idea is you're searching for them, and it's much easier to describe somebody if you have a picture, okay? So therefore you create that picture in the form of an illusionary portrait or picture to somebody else, so you can say, okay, you see this individual? Have you seen them around? It's like showing the photo in the movie. Otherwise, you could also create a portrait on a wall of a feared enemy to scare other NPCs, creatures, or monsters. Now, it needs to be something they would be truly afraid of. If they're not truly afraid of it, chances are your dungeon master's not going to go with that, and you're not going to get anywhere with it. But that is number one. How many different ideas have I got here today? I've got about 16 that cover a lot of different things. Some of them are sort of combined into other things as well. Okay, number two, you can augment a musical performance with accompanying musical instruments. Now, that might be something like a drum beat, or a horn, or something like a guitar, a flute, or any other kind of musical instrument. Now, it's only going to last a minute, which means you would have to then cast it again, or have somebody else cast it again as they are performing their musical performance, or whatever it might be. Okay, so I know that's not a combat focus, but I know that will be helpful for those of you who are trying to sort of put on a show. Number three is you can create illusionary objects that obscure or provide cover for the character or an ally. Now, what might that be? That could be a crate, a barrel, a piece of furniture, a small tree, a bush. It might be a low wall. Now, how big is this going to be? It's going to be no higher than 5 feet maximum. Okay, that's why I say a low wall. It could be a box, a statue, a rock, even a small door or part of a door. Now, this is going to provide you potentially with total cover depending on how high you are or how tall you are in terms of a character, or whether you crouch down so you stay covered completely by the illusionary object. Or it might provide you with partial cover. Now, in most cases, because you can make the thing 5 foot high, there's no reason why you shouldn't be getting 3/4 cover, not just half cover. Half cover is only a +2 to your armor class, whereas 3/4 cover would be a +5. So therefore, very, very useful. And yes, I know the elephants are usually very, very large, but I just couldn't help myself. I had to put the picture in. Sorry. Imagine it's a very small elephant. Okay, moving on. Number 4. You can create a distraction to get past guards in the form of a sound like falling rocks, a horn blasting or blowing, a bell, which might be the basically your alarm, a screaming person, clashing steel, which indicates there's a battle taking place, crashing noises, like something's falling over or landing on the ground, footsteps. All of those would make pretty good distractions so you can get past the guards. And there are lots of others as well. This is just what I can fit into my notebook, really. Okay, number 5. You can create a distraction to confuse the enemy in the form of a false object like a golden statue. Now, golden statues, people tend to like those sorts of things. They might be more interested in the golden statue than trying to attack you. A treasure pile. Now, when I say treasure pile, I really mean an item, because you can't create multiple items. So if whatever you're making has to be one object, okay? So if your treasure pile really needs to be something that is fairly basic. You could create a treasure chest. You could even create a trap pressure plate and make it really obvious that it's there so that somebody sees it and thinks, oh, okay, I better avoid stepping on that. So they're busy trying to step around the pressure plate rather than concentrating on you. You could even set up an illusionary tripwire. There are other things you can use, and that is, this thing stipulates that it has to be an object, but there's no reason why you could not create the illusionary image of a small wax person or creature, and it must fit in that 5-foot cube. Those are just a few different ideas. Even the footprints in the sand or in dirt are all really good ideas. Okay, what about number 6? That's How about intimidating an enemy or scaring them away with a sound like a lion or a dragon roaring? Loud noises, that will do it. War drums, an explosion, or just people yelling. Now I know a few people are going to start asking me, well, how complicated can this illusion be in terms of an object and sound? We'll get back to that, but it can actually be relatively complicated, and yes, it could be a voice, and it can be phrases. Just can't be a lot of phrases. All right, so number 7 on our list is one of my favorites because somebody in the community presented it, and that is create the image of a realistic statue with bite marks or claw marks or even a chunk that's been bitten out of it. And this is the idea is you're trying to deceive or scare an intelligent creature into thinking that the statue is the victim of a basilisk or a medusa. Now there are some creatures that won't understand that concept, so putting that out will be a complete waste of time. But if you're dealing with an intelligent creature, they will understand that that might indicate that there's something around here that's very dangerous that they want to avoid. Most individuals do not like to hang out around basilisks and the medusa. Number 8, you can create an illusionary or an image of a barrier or an obstacle in a narrow space to force the enemy to move around it. Now, it doesn't have to be a narrow space. It might be in an open area, but it can only cover 5 foot. So it's not a big area. You're only getting 5 foot by 5 foot. That cube is all you've got to work with. So, but it could be something like a hunting trap, okay? Something like that. Or a caltrop, or barbed wire fencing, or just a fence, or a wall, or a thorn bush, or a broken glass bottle. Or how about just putting a hole? Just put a hole right there. It's very, very simple. Okay, that's it. Now, I know people are saying, yeah, but hang on, the hole can't have depth. No, it doesn't. It doesn't have depth. But you can create the image of there being a hole. And really, when we think about it, if you watched cartoons and there's that hole that you can just chuck on the ground, basically all it is a black round thing. That's it. So not hard to actually create with minor illusion. Let's get really tricky now. Number 9, create the appearance of a solid section of ground over a pit or a hole for enemies to fall into. So if there's a pit trap that's only 5 foot by 5 foot, you could make it appear to be just solid stone or wooden floorboards or just a section of dirt. That's it. It's an object. Now, I am aware that some people will say, well, hang on, what if the hole is bigger than that? Well, you can still make an area look like it's solid ground, but not cover the entire hole, because that then, the problem is, they don't know where the edge is. If you put the illusion of solid ground closest to them, then when they walk up to the hole, they're actually not walking up to the edge of the hole, they've just walked over your illusion and down they go. So another way of getting rid of somebody who you don't want to have around. Number 10, this is a bit tricky. You could hide inside an illusionary box or a rock or a tree, provided you are small enough to do so to escape capture or execution from your enemies. Basically, you're hiding out in your illusion. Now, the idea behind this is the illusion has to be hollow. It still has to be an object, okay? And it can have some complexity to it, but it can't move, okay? You're not going to have a tree that's got branches wiggling around or anything like that. And you have to make sure you stay very, very still. Now, I would also like to point out the chances are this is not going to work unless you are a creature or a character who is small size. Because to fit a medium-sized creature into this kind of illusion might be asking a bit much. Number 11. You can create the image of a realistic wax person or creature. You're not creating the image of a creature or a person, you're creating an object, okay? It's an image of a wax person or creature to trick the enemy into thinking the party has extra members in their party that are fighting alongside you, and this is to provide another target, or it could potentially scare them off. So select something fearsome like a dwarf barbarian with a whole lot of tattoos all over him, holding an enormous axe or something like that. Or how about a hellhound? Or a lich. I think most creatures are going to be pretty terrified of a lich. And the good thing about a lich is you can make it pocket size and fit within that 5-foot cube. It could be a demi-lich. Yes, demi-lich you can fit in that space easy peasy. Or a small dragon. A small dragon might work as well. There are actually so many different things, and I would go through the monster manual and have a look at all the monsters that are there. And what you're looking for is something you can fit into that space. If you can fit it into that 5-foot cube, try that out and pick something that you think that the enemy will not like. Okay, that's the idea behind this. You can also use images on a box or a painting or a wall or a section of wall to tell a story and communicate basic ideas to your non-player characters that you come across. Now, why would you do this? Because your character and the NPC or non-player character doesn't speak the same language as you, so then you use pictures. It's kind of like another form of sign language, but you can't be guaranteed they'll understand sign language because not everybody has sign language in their Dungeons & Dragons game, but the image is something that is pretty much translatable to everybody and anything, provided they are relatively intelligent. So I'm suggesting this as an idea as well. Also, number 13, you can create a paper picture, so a piece of paper, and have a picture on it to aid you in describing a monster or creature that you have seen, but you need to get somebody else to make the monster knowledge check because they actually know about monsters and you really don't know very much about them. And of course, if they're getting third party or secondary insight into what they might look like, it's much better to provide them with a picture so that when they make that check, they've got a much better chance, because I would normally give my players disadvantage or put in some sort of penalty for not having actually seen the creature. But if you give them a picture, that solves a lot of those problems. Okay, number 14 is a bit of a dick move, but I'm going to say it anyway. Get the NPCs or the characters excited by creating, say, a treasure chest or a jug, tankard, or a barrel of ale or wine. Of course, this is going to be a short-lived gag because as soon as they touch it, it is going to be completely obvious that it's an illusion, and either they're going to be very angry with you or you're going to pop the joke. But yes, as I said, can be used. It is a bit of a dick move though. All right, number 15. You can intimidate the enemy with the image, illusionary image, of their head on a pike stuck into the ground. Okay, make the pike or the stick and their head one object. In fact, you don't even have to have the pike. You could just have their head lying on the ground in front of them. Or what about creating a gravestone with their name on it? If you know what their name is, stick the name of their enemy on the gravestone. What about a voodoo doll with pins sticking out of it? And of course the voodoo doll is going to look like them. And would that not be scary to you? I think that would pretty much scare me. All right, number 16. You can combine minor illusion spells, or the minor illusion spell, with silent image and with major illusion for a more convincing deception. If you really need to have a few more things going on, major illusion and silent image already do quite a lot, but minor illusion allows you to present sound, and it's the strongest element of the minor illusion spell is the sound aspect of it. So use that aspect of it when you're creating your other using your other spells. Okay, all right, so now let's talk about sage advice, because I know there's going to be a whole lot of questions. Sage advice indicates that minor illusion cannot create an image or an object that is moving. So it can't move. It's got no movement. It's not alive. Okay. It can't be a creature. It has to be an object. So therefore, whatever you create that's going to look like a creature can't actually be a creature. It has to take a different form, okay? Now, here's the problem with this particular aspect and application of minor illusion. There are many dungeon masters who will look at this and say, absolutely not. It's not going to go down at my table. Forget about it. Oh, well, okay, so that's one aspect of minor illusion you can't use. I think this is probably the one area that most dungeon masters will put their foot down and say, no, I'm not doing that. It says it can't be a creature, and if it looks like a creature, as far as I'm concerned, it's a creature, okay? No, you cannot create the image or object of a wax person or creature. I don't want to have any bar of that. That's going to happen for some tables, for sure. The other aspect is that this sound produced from minor illusion can be complex sounds. So it can be a voice and it can be a phrase. It can't be a great huge conversation. But that means if you are, say, a race like the Kenku who can't speak, then you might be able to use minor illusion to communicate very small short words or phrases. And it would work perfectly fine. It also means that when you're trying to create sound to distract somebody or get somebody's attention or scare somebody, that it can be a bit more complicated. It could be part of a conversation, okay? The other aspect that tends to come up almost always is, and I've already pointed it out, minor illusion, whatever it is in terms of an object, okay, it must fit within a 5-foot cube. You cannot unfold it into an extra space, okay? If it doesn't fit in a 5-foot cube, it doesn't work. So that covers pretty much everything I have for you today on minor illusion. And there's quite a lot here, and there's more that you can do with it. You just need to sit down and you will come up with a lot more stuff. So if you found this video helpful and informative, fantastic. I actually have hundreds of videos for all players and dungeon masters. I also have a video that I put out on how to use Mage Hand in clever ways. And I would suggest going and checking out that video. I think you will find that really useful to you. Now, if you want to support the channel so I keep doing video content like this, well, guess what? The best way to do that is through my Patreon page. You can go through the Amazon affiliate links down in the description if you want to buy stuff online. I have a merchandise shelf underneath all of my videos. You're welcome to go and check that out as well. Just watch my videos is fine too. Not an issue. Make sure to share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.